Hey everyone. This lecture isn't going to be a long one, but it is going to be a very important one. Here, we're going to define what the purpose of a red team is. What value does a red team even provide? And why is this course even important outside of fun technological type things? To help us out a bit, I'm going to pick a resource that I admire to help give our definitions some backing, but also provide some formal support to the argument being made as a whole. As defined in the Red Team Development Operations book by Joe Vest and James Tuberville, red teaming is a process of using tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs for short, to emulate a real-world threat with the goals of training and measuring the effectiveness of people, processes, and technology. All of these people, processes, and technology are what comprise and even defend an environment, so these need to be measured from an offensive perspective, and that's why we care about these TTPs. Well, for starters, what is a TTP? Well, TTPs are exactly what you're learning in this course. TTPs are more or less tradecraft from an offensive security perspective, but they can be broken down into categories that both offensive and defensive security professionals can evaluate. For example, you aren't really going to learn any real tactics for stealth or techniques for privilege escalation on a given system in this series. That's not what this course is about. But you will hopefully pick up a technique or two to keep your C2 infrastructure up and running longer, which is a valid T in TTP that supports red teaming operations. Tactics are dialed-in ideas. They're strategies, specific things that can be done to achieve something. It's kind of like a chess move or a specific play in a team-based sport. Techniques are methods and concepts by which something could be achieved, like hiding in a specific system location or using redirectors on a C2 server. Procedures are steps and processes by which something is executed. This is the specific flow by which various tactics and techniques are actually utilized by a red team, so exactly the steps that you take and what you do to execute them. The next thing that a red team does is take those TTPs and emulate a real-world threat. That's what it sounds like. Now, the type of threat depends on what controls an organization wants to test. If it's a smash and grab scenario, maybe we're picking locks and stealing papers, knocking over systems. If it's a more specific, detailed scenario to snag a specific credential, maybe we are carefully targeting and isolating marks via social engineering and carefully crafted implants. The common theme here is a goal. Real-world threats are operating on a goal, something they want to achieve or obtain. Even if that goal is just to destroy things, it's still a valid goal. Most organizations may be concerned with specific threats to an environment, such as stealing user data or accessing private intellectual property. So the threats emulated would have a goal to obtain specific aspects of access to that type of information. Red teaming operates on a goal-driven, objective-based approach. The team will use any necessary TTPs to achieve a goal. Red teams are still teams of ethical hackers. It may be a valid technique to hold someone at gunpoint and retrieve a credential, but that's how a criminal would do things, and it's highly unlikely that that will be okay with a legal team. However, you can abstract that technique into the concept of fear. You may be using a more ethical method of fear to obtain information from someone. Now, the specific legal boundaries of what is or is not allowed, and the ethical boundaries of what is right or appropriate is also somewhat dictated by the industry you're in. Military red teams are not going to operate under the same ethics and legal boundaries as a red team at a corporate financial firm. They all, however, operate under the same principles of TTPs and goal-oriented operations. The big question is, why is any of this valuable? Why does any of it matter at all? One simple justification that I like to use is one that relates to living at home. For those of us that are fortunate to have a home or some sort of shelter, usually we have doors with locks. Let's say you even install an alarm system in your home as an extra measure. You expect all these controls to work. You expect them to at least deter a criminal, or at worst, let you know so that you can take action to call for authorities or defend yourself in case of an emergency, right? What happens if those controls don't work? What if your locks leave screws exposed externally and you didn't notice? What if the wiring in your alarm system isn't configured correctly to call for emergency services on its own? What if the alarm doesn't even work at all? What if a criminal finds out that stuff first and makes quick work of stealing from your home, or worse? Wouldn't you have liked to test out your security controls at some point before a criminal came in and found out that they were all going to fail? That's the value offensive security in general brings. But red teaming is a mature subset of that, in which people get to emulate a specific kind of criminal, deliver a report, but actually cause no real unacceptable harm or damage, right? Any damage or stuff caused is per the engagement rules. It's what they wanted to occur. And then even after that, if you're able to break controls or break rules, the red team sits with you and helps you fix those controls. This way, those specific things don't happen again by somebody who actually wants to cause harm. Red teaming is arguably defense. It's meant to harden the entire process, not just tell you to patch systems. However, running operations is a big deal. If I have a goal to compromise hundreds of laptops or deploy physical implants in a building, who facilitates all the back-end tech in these operations? Most red teamers can exploit systems, break into buildings, but who's on the back end to catch the shells and exfiltrate the data? Well, the answer to that after you complete this course will be you. So that's a brief introduction to red teaming. There's so much more to it. And in the next section, we will actually explore how the infrastructure operations side of things applies to red teaming throughout the rest of this course. And from then on, we'll actually be building out offensive security infrastructure to support those kind of engineering goals. See you in the next lecture.